Okay, hello everyone. My name is Courtney. I'm a 32-year-old female, and today we're going to discuss my health risk assessment assignment. So, the health risk assessment is going to be made up of four parts: the family history, a personal health profile, a lifestyle assessment, and a chance to reflect and provide three recommendations that I could use to utilize or improve my health. So, starting with the family history, we're going to break it into two parts. We're going to discuss the males in my family and the females in my family. So, if we look at the males in my family, we see that they have already been diagnosed with hypertension. The males would include my uncles, my father, and my grandfather. They have all been diagnosed with hypertension and some form of cardiovascular disease. My brother has not been diagnosed with any type of disease involving cardiovascular or hypertension as well. So he's doing fairly good. So if we look at the females on my in my family, we that would consist of my mother, grandmother, and my aunts and my sisters. Currently, my sisters are all doing well, including myself. None of us have been diagnosed with either hypertension or diabetes. But if we look at my aunts have all been diagnosed with hypertension, and then including my mother. And then if you look at my grandmother, her and all of her siblings, which includes her sisters, have been diagnosed with diabetes. So looking at at my family health history and looking at that and interpreting that data, we can see that I am already at risk for two risk factors, which include diabetes and hypertension. Also, if you haven't noticed by looking at me now, I am African American, and African Americans are more likely to be diagnosed with hypertension and diabetes. This may be due to several factors, but including genetic predisposition, but also dietary intake and just general lack of knowledge has a lot to do with it as well. So, looking at my personal health profile, that kind of gives you an at a glance look at myself, since we've already discussed the family health history and we know that I'm at risk for diabetes and hypertension. Looking at my own personal health profiles allows me to highlight any areas that may need improvement to minimize that risk. So, in terms of my current health status, my labs are all within normal range. I've had lab work. I usually will have lab work done once a year along with my physical. And so far, I have had no lab values that have come back that were not within normal limits. For example, in my HbA1c, which measures your risk for diabetes, has all been in control. I believe my numbers was a 4.8, which was fairly good. Anything, I believe 5.6 and above is generally borderline diabetes. And also my cholesterol. My cholesterol was very good. My healthcare provider had no concerns there. Um, Before we move into my health and habits for my lifestyle assessment, I want to also say that when I did have my blood work done, I was practicing keto, so I did have a high intake of ketones in my diet. And so sometimes this may be mistaken for diabetes or a risk factor for diabetes if a healthcare provider sees this in the lab. But, I quickly informed my healthcare provider, hey, I'm practicing keto and this is why the ketones are a lot higher, which she totally understood. Okay, so moving on to the lifestyle assessment. The lifestyle assessment is going to be a series of questions that pertains to your health. For example, it's going to ask you about alcohol intake, stress management, exercise and nutritional intake, and disease prevention, just to name a few. And I'm going to focus in on the areas where I needed the most improvement. But before I do that, I want to discuss how it's scored. So at the end of each section, you take the score that you get based off of the answers and you apply it to the scoring rubric, and the scoring rubric allows you to interpret those results. So if we look at the scoring rubric of anything 9 through 10 is excellent. That means it poses minimal risk. Moving on to 6 to 8, a score of 6 to 8 would indicate good health practices, but you may need some room for improvement. And then moving from scores 3 to 5, which would indicate a moderate risk. That's more like, okay, red flags are going up. You may need to make some changes regarding your practices in this category. And then finally, a score of 0 to 2 would indicate a serious risk. That means that, this risk pose an immediate threat to your health, and some changes may need to be made like ASAP. Looking at my lifestyle assessment, I can honestly say that I had no areas of serious health risk, but I did have a moderate health risk in exercise and in nutrition. That doesn't surprise me. Being a new student in an RN program and just trying to find time to manage myself has been a challenge as of late. So finding time to incorporate exercise and making good nutritional values has been a work in progress for me lately. So, since we know that in my lifestyle assessment, that those are two issues that I need to work on, such as exercising and nutrition, coupled along with the fact that I have a health history or a increased risk for diabetes and hypertension. Those are red flags, and they go hand in hand with either increasing your risk for hypertension and diabetes, or decreasing your risk for those two. So, per CDC, the CDC recommends that exercising can definitely reduce your risk for getting hypertension and diabetes, and they offer three ways to exercise. And they say that a brisk walk of 30 minutes a day for 5 days a week is one option. And then another option would be vigorous exercising for an hour and 15 minutes per week. And then another option would include vigorous exercising, a combination of the two, I should say, which would be vigorous exercising and moderate exercising, and also strength training, which you could do 2 or more days out of the week and be okay. And so I think that as a recommendation for myself, or looking into that, I would choose that just because you could utilize a gym environment more with that, with the combination of the two. And it requires the least amount of access per week. So if I can maximize the most out of my time, then I would do so with the blending of all of those elements. And then also what I found interesting is the American Heart Association also says to eat a variety of fruits and vegetables, and you can have fun with this by adding color to your fruits and vegetables. And what I mean by adding color is by shopping around, trying different fruits that may have colors that you're not used to seeing, and having a variety of different fruits offers your body a chance to get more minerals and vitamins, which could be helpful in fighting off diseases such as cancer. And then also, the CDC also states to reduce saturated and unsaturated fats, which I will admit I have had an issue with that in the past, in terms of ingesting too much fat. And the reason why is, as stated before, I had a previous history of practicing keto. And so with keto, we tend to utilize more of the fat for energy rather than the carbohydrates. And so I did notice, though, by looking at the CDC recommendations, that you can induce fat or ingest fat, but it should be healthy fats, such as polyunsaturated fats or monounsaturated fats, which would include walnuts and healthy oils such as canola oil. And I'm really proud of that fact because I already incorporated canola oil into my diet as well. So that should be a great, that's an added bonus right there. And then also adding in healthy fats such as omega 3s. I was also really excited about this because it includes a lot of fishes and tunas, which are two foods that I really like to eat and enjoy to make. So I think that'll be really easy to incorporate into my diet. And then also just practicing moderation. So I believe that by blending the exercising and making a few diet changes, I can increase my chances of reducing my weight and managing my weight more effectively. And also by improving my health, my overall health, excuse me. So if I can reduce my risk factors of getting um, diabetes and hypertension, then I can improve my overall health and obviously my lifespan. And so going back to the lifestyle assessment, I like to go back to this one because it has an area where it has tobacco use. And I stated earlier in my family history, when we looked at the males, something that they also all had in common also is that they all smoked, which made it really difficult for them to manage their hypertension, which smoking really can does that. It can place a lot more workload on the heart, which causes management of hypertension to be ineffective. So, you know, now all of them have now stopped or participated in smoking cessation, which will help in the long run in terms of them managing their hypertension. But I should also say for my lifestyle assessment, I do not have a history of smoking, nor have I ever smoked. So that is also a great thing in terms of reducing my risk factor for hypertension. Okay, you guys, so that would include my health risk assessment. Hopefully, some people will see some of the steps that I have taken to improve my health and learn from it, or maybe see some of the mistakes that I have made and learn from it as well. Um, I really enjoyed doing the lifestyle assessment because I think it really showed the areas or highlighted the areas that I really needed to work on. And so, since I can see it, I can kind of visualize what I need to work on. I can kind of work on those areas to kind of reduce my chances of um, being diagnosed with those risk factors such as diabetes or hypertension. Okay, that concludes my health assessment. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Professor. Goodbye.